The SEC, Godfather Conference of college football, the talk of the town in this past year with Texas and Oklahoma coming in. It is the hardest and deepest conference in all of college football. And today, before the season starts, I'm going to try and predict who will soar, who will struggle, and the SEC champion. And when the season ends, we'll come back to this video and we'll see if I was correct on some things or horribly wrong. Now, I've already made my college football playoff prediction, and I talked about who I think is going to win the championship. But I have Texas and Georgia playing in the SEC championship game. Texas, all things considered, have a relatively easy schedule their first year in the SEC. Way easier than their counterparts Oklahoma, who have a way tougher season. And I think Texas can get to that SEC championship game. Some hard games they have is Michigan, week 2, which doesn't affect their SEC standings. Georgia, obviously, in week 6, week 5. And then they play Oklahoma right before Georgia. And then the last ranked team as of now they play is Texas A&M, last game of the year. Which is going to be a very tough game no matter how good A&M is. And it's at A&M, which could be a very, very hard game to win. But I think Texas pulls it out. Honestly, I think Texas goes undefeated this year. I know that is crazy to think about, their first year in the SEC, but they are building off of a very, very, very strong season last year. And if they can get over the hurdle of Oklahoma and Georgia back to back, I think they use that and just soar through the rest of the year. I think Texas is a very, very strong contender for the national title this year. And I guess we'll see later on in the year if I'm correct or not. But I think they have a very big shot. Georgia, also, I think is a very, very good team. We all know that. We all know Georgia is Georgia. They're a great football team. But they have a significantly harder schedule than Texas does. Georgia plays Clemson week 1, Alabama week 4 at Bama, at Texas week 7, and then at Ole Miss and at home against Tennessee later on in the year. That is significantly harder than what Texas has. And I could honestly see Georgia dropping a game, maybe even 2. At Alabama, I don't care who's their coaches, is a very tough game to win. And then at Texas, you already know I'm super high on Texas. I think that's going to be a very, very tough game. I could very well see Georgia dropping 2 games this year in the SEC regular season alone. Still, though, I think that they're going to make it to the championship game. And I think they will lose to Texas. Now, that game could go either way. But I think both teams make it to the playoffs relatively easily. Some teams I think will struggle is Oklahoma and Florida. Oklahoma, they are not nearly at the level of Texas. I don't think so, at least. And their schedule is significantly harder. They play home against Tennessee week 4. Then week 6, they play the Cotton Bowl against Texas. Texas coming off a loss in that game. It's going to be a very hard game for Oklahoma to win. Then they play at Ole Miss, and they end the year at Missouri, home against Alabama, and at LSU. That is a terrible way to end a season for any team. And I think there is no chance that they don't lose at least 2 out of those 5 games. Honestly, if they can win 3 out of those 5 games, Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, LSU, that's very impressive. I think Oklahoma struggles greatly this year. I think they're around a 7-5 team, and I think they will struggle a great amount. Florida has the same problem as Oklahoma. They have a very, very tough schedule. They play Miami, who I'm super high on this year. I think Miami will win the ACC. They play A&M at home, at Tennessee, home against Georgia, at Texas, home against Ole Miss, and then end the season off at Florida State. I think Florida will be a 6-6, 5-7 team. That's not to say that they're like a terrible team, but they play a very tough schedule. Probably the hardest in the SEC. And I just don't see Florida making anything of this year. Sorry, Florida fans, but I think this is going to be a rough one. Now, Bama. I think Bama will have a decent year, but for Bama standards, it's going to seem like they just dropped off the side of a cliff. Some of Bama's tough games are at home against Georgia, at Tennessee, at home against Missouri, at LSU, and then at Oklahoma. I think they will drop Georgia, Tennessee, and then LSU. And Missouri and Oklahoma are not cakewalks either. I could maybe see them beating Missouri. But at Tennessee and Georgia are going to be very, very hard games. And Kalen DeBoer doesn't have his team. Like, I don't think Kalen DeBoer is a bad coach, but this is Nick Saban's team. Usually when a new coach comes in, it takes a few years for them to get their players in, and then you start to see progress. And Alabama just went to the playoffs, so it's not like they're a bad team, like looking to improve a little bit. It is almost certain that Alabama is going to be on the decline this year. And if they're not, that's extremely impressive. But I'm low on Alabama this year. I think that they will drop off a little bit. They're still going to be a great team. I have them barely missing the playoffs. And yeah, I think it's going to take a few years, but I think Alabama will be just fine with Kalen DeBoer. A dark horse to win the SEC, I think, is Tennessee. I say this because Tennessee's schedule isn't all that crazy. The only tough games they have is at Oklahoma, at home against Bama, and at Georgia. Other than that, they don't really play anyone that good. I could totally see them upsetting Alabama. In fact, I think they will win that Alabama game. And then that Georgia game, if they can somehow beat Georgia in Georgia, they are, like, that's the team that's going to the SEC championship. I think if anyone has a chance to surprise some people and open some eyes, it's Tennessee. Do I think they'll do it? No, I don't. But I think they'll be damn close. I think that Georgia-Tennessee game in November will determine who goes to the SEC championship. I think that's going to be a gigantic game. Lock in College game day for that week, most likely. I don't know what other games are going on. But I think that could make or break the season, and them just getting to that point will probably open a lot of eyes. If all that happens, I have Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss, and LSU all making the playoffs. Let me know what you guys think. But that is my predictions for the SEC.